Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Motoman Dan. That's right, we're back for another tier list review thing of Trinkets this time. However, instead of doing a tier list, I'm just going to kind of give it a score out of 10 because there's only 6 of them. Yeah, we'll get into that, but real quick, just to let you know, Trinkets are the only item in the game that uses a special upgrade. They don't have level upgrades, but instead they use a special upgrade. But we're going to go ahead and get into that. Let's go ahead and start with the Empty Rift Scroll. The Empty Rift Scroll, by equipping it, it increases your Rift points by 5. If you get this unique upgrade to increase it number of Rift points, it increases it by an additional 5. So if you play a regular map on Rift Lord, it's 10. With the Empty Rift Scroll, it's 15. With this upgrade, it's 20. And then war scenarios on Rift Lord are 20. This will increase it up to 30. The increased duration of the Rift Protection, it normally is 10 seconds. It goes up to 14 seconds. If you'd like to see it in action, I do use it on my Coliseum Endless Rift Room build on Endless for Coliseum run. That is, I use it a couple of times because barricades there, you know, orcs go through, whatever. It's a pretty good trinket to bring. And then the special upgrade is the first enemy in the Rift is worth 0 points. You know, the way I look at Empty Rift is the way I look at something like health insurance, right? Some people say it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But for me, it's like, well, I'm spending money on it. And if I don't need it, why am I spending money on it, right? Exactly my point. So bringing the Empty Rift Scroll does take up one of your slots. And it's got a long cooldown, so, you know, you don't use it all the time. It's there for extra insurance, but it's not necessary. You can beat everything without needing this. You know, I guess it's there if you want to do challenges or something. Maybe in the new challenge mode that they've got going on, maybe it's going to become a thing. You can bring it and makes it easier for you. Doesn't allow you to lose, or at least not lose as much. But overall, it's really not necessary to have unless you create a situation where it is necessary to have. The Empty Rift Scroll for me, it gets a 6 out of 10. It's useful, but it's insurance. It only matters when your kill box fails, and you could just make a better kill box. You can just pay attention to the enemies that come out, the waves that come out. You can just kind of take care of the enemies before they become a problem, before the Empty Rift Scroll even needs to be used. And even when it is used, you can't use it all the time, and it doesn't save you forever. So for that reason, I got to give Empty Rift a 6 out of 10. Now we're on to the Freedom Trinket. Now the Freedom Trinket, whenever you equip it, it gives you stun immunity. The only enemies in the game that do stun are ogres and armored ogres. They'll do a little charge attack and they'll stun you. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world unless you're playing late game endless, because when the ogre stuns you, that means he's targeted you, and guess what that means? You can only be targeted by 2 other things. But while the ogre is charging at you, he knocks everything else away, meaning you're probably not going to get hit by anything by the time the stun is over, because the ogre has a cooldown after his stun before his next attack. And before his next attack, you can actually pull out a stone staff and stone him. So you can get stunned, but never hurt pretty easily, right? So it's not super useful for that, but it does get annoying sometimes if you're trying to do something, or even on Endless. On Coliseum, for example, a lot of firelings, sappers, and if an ogre comes up and stuns you, guess what you're not doing? Taking care of the problem, taking care of the sappers and stuff. So it can be a bit of an issue. But there's ways to play around it. You just watch for the ogres and run away from them. Use your sprint. You have sprint, you know, a running speed thing that you can do. And that runs faster than ogre's charge. So, Freedom Trinket, for that portion of it, yeah, it's okay. Then it breaks crowd control's effects and grants a short immunity if used. The only one this works for is gnolls. The gnoll's slow. When a gnoll hits you, they do a slow on you, and it's a pretty annoying slow. I'll be honest. I'd use it for that if I care to use it at all. It doesn't remove frozen because you can't use it while you're frozen. If you could, it may make it a little bit better, but you have to use it right before you're going to be frozen, and then it gains you the immunity of the frozen. So take that for what it's worth. Right now, there's only one way to get frozen in the game, and that's through frostbats, so even that's not too much of a problem. They don't show up a lot. They don't show up in the main storyline either. This does cost 3 skulls to unlock, so it's fairly cheap. This first one, passively resist all status effects. Slow, frozen, and stun. And acid, I think. Yeah, that's right. The acid status effect, probably the arcane debuff as well, those sorts of things. It kind of makes you immune to all of that, which, hey, that's pretty good. That's really not bad. Speed boost when resisting a stun. That means that you can use an ogre to attack you, charge at you, and if they hit you, you then get a speed boost. I haven't tested this. Maybe it'd be fun to test. We might take a look at that later. But I just don't ever use it. I bought it, and the only thing I used it for is to test it, and that was it. And to find out that it wasn't working as intended, but they fixed it, so now it works as intended. Okay, now we've got the co-op player gets speed boost when breaking from stun. Now, this is something I'm waiting to test. And if you saw my channel video that I posted about the co-op, this is something I want to test because I want to see if we both get this, special upgrade, and we both get the speed boost when resisting stun, and we both resist a stun. Are we running Sonic speed? Like, what are we doing? Anyways, it's something to test. It might be pretty fun, but overall, Freedom Trinket's just not useful, in my opinion. It's maybe more useful than the Rift Scroll because the Rift Scroll's insurance, and this is less insurance. But yeah, overall, I've got to give the Freedom Trinket a 4 out of 10. All right, let's talk about the Healing Trinket. Now, the Healing Trinket, it gives you a passive health regeneration of 1.25 health per second. Now, by default, you have 200 health. Whenever you use it, it heals you. Now, I say that. I just learned that different heroes have different mana, so it could be that different heroes have different health pools. I don't know that for certain yet. That's something that I'll have to find out later, but generally speaking, it's around 200 health. I think it's 200 health for everyone, from all the testing that I've done. It's 1.25 health per second. If you get the upgrade for increased passive health regen, it's 2.5 health per second. It's still much faster. It's like 10 health per second or something if you go to the Rift, so it's way faster on the Rift. But this can help you if you're using something like the Dwarven Warhammer. You know, I would probably go with the passive health regeneration to help you kind of sustain that melee combat if that's what you're looking to do. When you use the Healing Trinket, you heal 100 health. So, like I said, you got 200 health, you heal 100. If you get this upgrade, it's 150. You're going to heal much more with the passive health regeneration in the amount of time it takes you to use it. Plus, you can use it for 100 instead of 150. So all this does is give you an extra 50, whereas this gives you a lot more than that because you're going to get that regeneration. Now, the special upgrade is increases max health by an additional 40 health. I think if you're not going to go melee, you don't really need the Healing Trinket. If you're not having a problem with ranged units, you don't need the Healing Trinket. Dying can be a blessing in disguise. It makes orcs run faster, which makes them run through a kill box faster. When you come back, you might actually die to move from one side of the map to the other. If your kill box is where you would respawn, or if an enemy's about to get through and you need to get back really quickly, dying and coming back may be faster than running. Just saying. So maybe the Healing Trinket doesn't really do it for you. When I go ranged, I never bring the Healing Trinket. If I go melee, I still generally don't. If you're dealing with a lot of explosive guys like on Coliseum, the Healing Trinket plus a melee weapon can be a really good combination. So I can see use for it. I don't use it, but I'm going to have to give the Healing Trinket a 6.5 out of 10. All right, let's talk about the Jar of Ghost. The Jar of Ghost is pretty cool. It's really useful if you're going melee. It's okay if you're going ranged, and it helps you with combos. And that's kind of the main thing. Whenever you equip it, enemies that hit you run away, which is pretty good, like ogres, for example. You pair this up with a trinket, with the lock, the stun resistant one. I've never forgotten the name because I don't ever use it. And then an ogre hits you, tries to do a stun, maybe fails the stun, and runs away, right? Something like that. The usefulness of the runaway is okay. Maybe it's good against gnolls, because gnolls can be very annoying when they hit you and they do a good amount of damage. They're never gonna like go for the rift, and they'll slow you as well. So if you can make a distance between you and them by them being feared, you can further that distance with some kind of crowd control, or you can have them run back into another trap or something. So the Jar of Ghost can be used pretty effectively against the gnolls, just by default having it equipped to you. Now whenever you use it, you kind of break the jar on the ground, and it creates this little pool of skulls that float up. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool looking trinket. I can't wait to see what it looks like on Steam. That'd be really cool. If they've changed the aesthetics of it, I don't know. What it does is it kind of sits in an enemy or in an area, and the enemies that come up to it see it and they run backwards. They get feared. So it's a good way to also send enemies back through your kill box, especially if you have a little choke corridor thing, and then you can place it at the exit of that corridor, and then they'll see it and they'll run back into it, the kill box. So yeah, it's good. It's really good for combos, and that's really where this shines, I think, is combos. If you remember to use it. I brought it and I've forgotten to use it a bajillion times. So if you're good at remembering to use the Jar of Ghosts, it's really good for combos. The fear is within a 6x6 area, so it's pretty big. Whenever you drop it, it costs 5 skulls to unlock. It's got 45-second cooldown. The fear surrounding enemies when attacked, that costs 8 skulls. The increased active duration for the for when you break it and it brings the skulls in the area of fear, basically, they go from 10 to 15 seconds. Whenever you break it, that's when it starts the cooldown. The increased active duration up to 15 seconds. Now you got 30-second cooldown. Use it again, it lasts for 15 seconds, 30-second cooldown. This is one I would get. Now this one, the fear surrounding enemies when attacked, you know, archer attacks you, and then all the enemies around you, orcs and everything, then they get feared. But I think the active duration is just that much more powerful if you remember to use it. Now the passive fear duration goes from 4 to 5 seconds. So when they get feared by either you breaking the jar or by them hitting you, the fear lasts for 4 seconds. This causes it to last for 5 seconds, which is kind of a long time. It's a lot longer than stun. Stun's 3 seconds. This goes up to 5 seconds. Jar Ghost, in my opinion, probably one of the better ones. Used for combos, used for crowd control. It's got a nice cooldown. It's not too long, and you don't use it defensively, right? You don't use it as insurance. You actually use it as an offensive tool to increase combos and to control your kill blocks. For me, the Jar Ghosts gets a 7.5 out of 10. We have the Mana Rage Trinket. Now, it recently came to my understanding that different characters that you play as have different mana pools. I didn't know that, but now I know. The Mana Rage Trinket, you equip it, it increases your mana capacity. I don't know about how much, because I don't know how much mana people have, so I wasn't able to test it. There's nothing that ever says how much mana things are. The first mana, fast mana regeneration, right? Faster than normal. Normally your mana does regen, your health by standard does not. Your mana does, but this makes it faster. Okay. The special upgrades, first spell after you use, cost 0 mana, pretty self-explanatory. Increased max mana, that's also pretty self-explanatory. I can't test it. And the increased duration. The increased duration for the Mana Rage Trinket is from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. So when you first activate it, it goes for 10 seconds. It like beefs up your mana regen, basically. I never use it. I do think that it is somewhat useful. The cooldown on it's 3 minutes, 180 seconds. That's a really, really long time. I think if the cooldown was less, then I would be more likely to use it. Even if you have it equipped and it's on cooldown, it still does give you that increased mana capacity, so you can spam stuff. But with the mana cost of everything that you need to spam being low enough, and the amount of orcs and stuff that come out, I just don't think it's necessary to use. If you're trying to do something special with it, maybe. But I think there are better things to have. Again, it's just another one of those insurance things. You know, what if I ran out of mana? Well, and orcs start getting through my kill box, we'll build a better kill box. You know, don't waste your mana. Learn from that and not just rely on the Mana Rage Trinket. So it's another insurance thing. You know, I don't like those, and I don't think it's as good as the health trinket, because I think the health trinket can really help you quite a bit more. For that reason, I have to give Mana Rage Trinket a 5 out of 10. Okay, lastly, Trap Reset Trinket. Now, the Trap Reset Trinket is pretty unique. Whenever you use it, it reduces the cooldown of traps, and it resets traps used. Equipping it reduces the cooldown of traps. It reduces it by 0.5 seconds. When you get the upgrade to passively reset faster, it's an additional 0.5 seconds, reducing cooldowns by 1 whole second if you have this. The Heals Barricade, when activated, is pretty good, and the reduced cooldown of it takes it from its 120 seconds to 110 seconds, right? It has a 2-minute cooldown by default. The Trap Reset Trinket, in my opinion, is the best trinket of them all. I would bring it with me if I'm going endless. It's very, very good for combos. If you have a bunch of enemies and they're walking through a high cooldown, you know, kill box area that you've got combo stuff set up, and you pop it, bam, everything's dead. Everything gets affected by all the traps all at once, and you've got yourself some combos, like some serious combos. So Trap Reset Trinket is very good for that. It's also really good for healing the barricades. It's something damages barricades. I've used it a lot, especially late game endless on a couple of designs of how I set up barricades. It's good for that. But for me, Trap Reset Trinket, it's the best one. It gets 8 out of 10. I think it'd be a little bit better with the archers, and maybe get a 10 out of 10 at that. But, you know, As far as me bringing it and how often I bring it, I would have to say I bring it about 80% of the time, and therefore for me it gets 8 out of 10.